So we're just gonna be like you. And my wife was like, you gotta go home.
Jay and Jay.
You're not over here to pinch me. I don't know when to start behaving.
I tried to do it, just slam that down.
Right. All right, we will begin our March 6th meeting. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Chair Jones could not make it today. He is out of town, so I will be covering for him this evening. So bear with me if I make any mistakes. Thanks for having me today. So we will go ahead and call to order our meeting for this evening, and we will start with a moment of silence. And if the members of the board will now stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and then just looking over the agenda for tonight, are there any revisions?
I have one change. I'd like to pull the laptop lease from the consent agenda and move it. Maybe we can just do it as the first action item,
Okay.
if that's okay. We have one thing we want to change about it, so I want to discuss it.
Okay, perfect. Anything else?
No.
All right. And then move to approve the minutes from last month. February, what was the date on that?
February 11th, regular meeting, and February 25th, work session.
Work sessions, right. Move to approve the minutes and the work session from February 11th and the work session.
Move to approve. A second.
Awesome. Board agrees, say aye.
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 All right, minutes approved. All right, so let's start with the best part of the evening, our spotlight. Dr. Duty?
All right, Winona Park. Ruth, you're kicking us off.
I heard this was the best elementary school in the district, according to an 8-year-old in my house. Yeah, yeah.
You might be familiar with what we're talking about. We wanted to take the time to talk about our PBIS implementation and to kind of spotlight what our team is doing at Winona Park. And so I brought with me, I'm Ruth Scott, I'm the principal at Winona Park. I have Rachel Sigmund, and she is our PBIS coach. And Carrie Beecham is the PBIS team lead, is that right? Team manager. They have all sorts of roles that we had to assign. But what I would say is they are pulling the heavy weights with our PBIS team. So we started with a training this year, and we were just digging our feet into like what PBIS was going to look like at Winona Park. So we had a team of teachers, representatives from every grade level, and they all volunteered to sit on the team and go through the training, and then start thinking about what we really were looking at the core values of Winona and trying to align that with how we could bring consistency to the expectations that we see at Winona Park. And I'm going to let Rachel talk a little bit about what we did next.
Thank you. Good evening.
Evening.
So as a team, our PBIS team consists of a representative, a teacher from every grade level, special ed. We have our counselor, our coach, our instructional coach, our principal make up our team. And we really thought about what we wanted to, how we were going to build our children to be empathetic, to be a good steward. Those were the things that we explicitly wanted to teach, to be respectful and to be safe. And so with this framework, we could really hone in on the different areas in our school. These were the main areas that we are already thinking ahead about to make our matrix larger, but these were the main areas of concern, and this is where we wanted to start. And so we have built our matrix. We started out as a team and within our training, and then we brought it back to our staff, and we had them make notes in their collaborative planning about language, about keeping it positive, measurable, observable. And then we just had a lot of words on our matrix and decided that we needed to edit. And so we wanted this to be manageable for our students. And so with a lot of editing and revising, this is where we're at right now. We're focusing currently right now in the cafeteria. And we've been advised by the state who did our training to just go slow and make sure that we have student input, teacher input for the buy-in, for it to happen, for it to work. We really needed to just slow down and really focus. So we are really, really trying to do that. So in the cafeteria, this is where we are thinking how we can teach empathy is by showing kind words, making space for others, and we're explicitly teaching that by providing lessons for our teachers. We created lessons for them to teach what empathy means, what a good steward means, being respectful and being safe, and we've not just invited all staff members, but paired up staff members with a classroom teacher and attend crew meetings so that all the language is being taught very in a concise and clear way so that everyone is on board, everyone's using the same language, and that the students have clear expectations along with our adults in the building. Is there anything I left out?
This takes us into after they did the 4 lessons on each 4B, they went into the Wildcat 4Bs in the cafe, and here is a short, we'll do a little part of it. Go to the next, go back. Not that, yeah, that one. So you'll also hear a chant that the music teacher
Be empathetic. Be a good steward. Be respectful. Be safe. Let's learn about the 4 B's in the cafeteria. Be empathetic. Use kind words. Make space for others. Let's see what it looks like and it doesn't look like. Be a good steward. Get only what you need. Clean up the table and floor for the next.
So we did this for all the 4Bs, and we had Whiskers show the things that it doesn't look like, and then we had students show the things that it does look like, and they reviewed it. We also have implemented or brought Whiskers into our community circle, and part of that is also doing a dance that the students created from PE. So I selected 4 different songs that go along with each word, and the next slide shows us a quick little clip of a dance that the students came up with that have to do with empathy. That has to do with empathy. See.
This is Empathy by Blake Rules.
Yeah, 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 yeah. E-M-P-A-T-H-Y. Yeah, that is how you spell empathy. I think about how others feel. That is the meaning of empathy. E-M-P-A-T-H-Y. Yeah, that is how you spell empathy. I think about how others feel. That is the meaning of empathy. Empathy, empathy, empathy. Anyone can be a friend of me. Empathy is when you think about what somebody else might be feeling.
We did a song for respect, a song for empathy, a song for safety, and I'm currently looking for a song for stewardship. So, and then the music teacher is also creating a song that uses those 4 words too.
That's amazing.
So what what we're also doing is the students are teaching Whiskers. So we started kind of hyping the 4Bs in January and teaching and telling the students that Whiskers wanted to know and that we needed to teach Whiskers. So this has kind of been the building anticipation with the students. And so in their lessons with the teachers, they're talking about what empathy looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like, what does respect look like, what does it sound like, what does it feel like. So they have those discussions in class. And then in community circle, Whiskers comes and we have a few student volunteers. And each week we're focusing on a different, we've done respect and empathy. And so each week we take a different value or expectation that we're working on, and the students get to share. I think that this part is so important to me because when we were talking about implementing PBIS, we felt really good about, we have already started using restorative practices really, and we do responsive classroom, and we have crew meetings every day. We build relationships constantly with the students. The students help set expectations. But the big piece that I did feel like was missing, and that has become really evident through this process, was the consistent piece. And so really focusing, and the point of the video is that everybody hears the same language. And that has already made such a big difference in just like how I speak to the students that are walking down the hall, is that they're hearing that the same words from me that they hear from MPE, that they hear in EIP, that they hear in their classroom. And so we've really been able to hone in on that consistent piece for us at Winona Park. Those are the 4Bs. Are there any questions?
No questions from me, but I really appreciated your matrix as a former kindergarten teacher and special ed teacher. I love that you had images associated with the criteria for each of those different environments. Yeah.
Thank
You
for
all are
sharing
rock
that with us.
stars. Keep it up.
Yes,
you very much.
Good job.
That was great. And now time for our equity spotlight. Who will be presenting? Westchester.
Yeah, Westchester. Rochelle, you're going to kick us off?
I am, yes. Thank you guys for having us. I love this addition to the board meetings. And so we are happy to be here. I want to introduce Jennifer Karubin, a first grade teacher, and Wanda Nesbitt, our gifted teacher. They are the Equity Committee co-chairs, and they're going to be speaking to you tonight, as well as a parent who will be up here in a little bit, Megan Ferguson. She is a parent of a first grader and a second grader at Westchester.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Our district work and then our school work took us in a additional direction. We wanted to look beyond what we were learning as teachers, as administrators here. We really wanted to bring our equity work to parents. So in reflection of Black History Month, Jennifer, Ms. Lofstrom and I discussed moving away from a school-wide celebration, although those are great, and really using this month, last month, as an opportunity to launch discussions with our parents regarding what we do. And that brings us to our 2 learning targets that we'll focus on tonight. Parents will be able to identify and express examples of privilege in their lives or the world in which they live. And parents will be able to discuss race as a social construct, not as a biological difference.
So the end of January, the first thing I did was lead the PTA in a privilege walk. And I'm not sure if you've had the opportunity to do a privilege walk before, but you all stand in a straight line in the middle of a room, and I read out about 40 descriptors, and I have a few of them here. If the majority of the history you learned from K-12 school books was primarily about the history of your race, take 1 step forward. And then if you read number 4, if you have frequently been made to feel conspicuous or self-conscious because of physical characteristics associated with your race, take 1 step back. So I went through the 40 descriptors with a group of very nervous parents who had never been part of an experience like this before, or part of the conversation that followed. And what happened, of course, at the end of it is all the people of color were gathered toward the back of the room, and the white parents were toward the front of the room. And then we went back to the library. Well, we debriefed a little bit in the cafeteria because we needed to see where we were in the room. And then we went back to the library and we debriefed it even more in small groups. It was extremely powerful for everyone present. Here, that night I got home and I had 2 emails. I'm so glad I came tonight. It was very impactful and meaningful. I enjoyed it. The Privilege Walk never becomes complacent. It always shakes me up with a little dose of reality. And we really appreciate your efforts tonight. And in general, we felt good about the discussion, and I think it was an important meeting. So we took a chance, PTA took a chance. We did this really vulnerable thing together, and it really set us up for the month of February doing some other things.
So I was part of that Privilege Walk, and I can truly say that it's so important for me to continuously live this work, no matter how it comes, whether it's with Ms. Lofstrand doing a Privilege Walk, or leading an equity study, or having conversations with Ms. Nesbitt or our parents. It's really, really important so that it can live and breathe within me and within my classroom. So back at the district equity meeting a few months ago, well, I guess maybe last month. No, I guess it was January. We were talking about next steps as a faculty and next steps, what we should do. And I told Ms. Lofstrand that I really felt compelled by a book that I had read called Waking Up White. And I told her a couple of years ago that it had changed my life, and since then had pushed me in a direction that I cannot stop. And so the book itself, totally I connected with. I was able to see myself in the book in many ways. And I told her that that's what we need to do, is we need to make the next step at Westchester. So we put it out there to the parents, and we just met tonight, right before this meeting. We met for an hour. Actually, an hour and a half, about 20 minutes. It could have been longer. And we discussed the first 60 pages, and it talked about redlining. It talked about how systemic racism can pour down the pipeline into our classrooms, how it can end up with our children, what to do about it. So we really were able to hold a sacred space where we were able to enjoy each other's conversations and press into those difficult moments, which were so important. So if any of you would like to read this book, I highly recommend it. It's lovely. And I look forward to the rest of it. We meet again in March, and we meet in April, and then we'll meet again in May. And I'm just thankful for the opportunity, and the parents and the teachers who were there, because it was both, were very thankful as well. And it was a great opportunity because people do want to talk when given the space.
I will also say that there is a neighbor of a parent who asked if they could come and join the book study. So there's someone who's not associated with our school, and we also have a parent at our school who is a DHS teacher who came as well. So I feel like the reach is growing, which is wonderful. So as Jennifer was hosting book nights, I decided to host movie nights. And so we have 3 movie nights where we are watching Race, the Power of an Illusion. And we opened it up, and actually the same high school teacher opened it up to some of her students as an enrichment activity. So we had high school students, we had parents, we had teachers who all came to the first part of this movie. And I have to be honest, the high school kids offered really put it out there for us to have a conversation about race with personal examples from their experiences in classrooms. So we have 2 more movie nights coming up. And again, we're attracting people who aren't just within Westchester, because we have been advertising this in our district emails as well.
All right. I just want to piggyback on something that's been said about the book study. I'm part of the book study, even though I'm not waking up white. And there's another parent of color who is a part of the book study. One of the things that we have discussed is that if we understand the matrix of racism and the social and political constructions here in the United States, then in a lot of ways to survive professionally, to survive as a parent here, you are waking up black, but in some ways tuning into your own whiteness, right? In order to just survive professionally. So it's been great. Culturally responsive teaching practices and diversifying the curriculum. It says that Dr. Banks and Mr. Campbell, who we so appreciate for their work, came and provided training for us, us being the equity committee at Westchester, which is comprised of about 7 teachers. We lead faculty meetings on different subjects, the subjects that were provided by Dr. Banks and Dr. Huddleston, and we weren't really sure where to go with how to talk to teachers about what to do in the classroom, because ultimately, even after Beyond Diversity, even after book discussions, after everything, teachers want to know, how does this translate into what I do in the classroom? How do I take everything that we've learned, these paradigm shifts that I have, this new awareness, and transfer it to what I do in the classroom? Where's the booklet? Where's the binder? Where's the step-by-step process and procedures for what I do? And so it's always about that layer under, that understanding of the layer under. So that is what they provided. So Jennifer Karubin is going to tell you a little bit more about what they taught.
So it's so encompassing, like it's so hard to explain it all to you, but I'll tell you my takeaway, because that's what they ask us at the end, is to give us a takeaway. So my takeaway is about a little thing in your brain called the amygdala. So it is an almond-shaped set of neurons located deep in the brain's medial temporal lobe, shown to play a key role in the processing of emotions. The amygdala forms part of the limbic system. So it's really tiny. When you see the brain, it's just this little tiny piece, but it's really, 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 really powerful and important, because it's like holds all the emotions in there. And what can happen is, just as a human, you always are searching for your basic needs. And there is something called an amygdala hijacking. And that refers to a personal emotional response that is immediate, overwhelming, and out of measure with the actual stimulus, because it has triggered a more significant emotional threat. And immediately we begin to think about, I as an adult thought about when I have to press into those uncomfortable places, that my amygdala starts to get hijacked, because what I want to do is fly away. I want to run away. And so I have to press up against that and try to fight that. And immediately we started making connections in the classroom with our kids. If our kids' basic needs aren't being met, or if we aren't approaching them in the way that they need to be approached, there will be an emotional hijacking and they will shut down. So part of that social emotional learning is getting to know your children and being able to be there and having culturally responsive classrooms to meet their needs, so that their basic needs can be met, and we can hopefully avoid that hijacking.
So how do we avoid that hijacking? We don't want that to happen. So when we redeliver the information from Dr. Banks and Mr. Campbell, we're going to focus on the culturally responsive brain rules, and I'd just like to read a few of them. We are specifically going to share with our faculty. Be aware of microaggressions that make students feel unsafe. The brain is wired to scan for social and physical threats, except when we are in positive relationships. Learning will be more effective if processed using common cultural learning aids. For example, stories, music, call and response. Before any student can be motivated to learn, that student must be motivated to pay attention. All learners have to connect new content to what they already know. And finally, actively go against what often happens with watered-down curriculum, not requiring higher order thinking for students of color. So, in all of that, I will say that it's been a great awakening for many people. Dr. Duda, you really took a chance a big chance. We'll talk later. You took a big chance when you did this. The board has thrown their support and financial backing behind the equity work in the district, and we're trying to do what we can on this level, while all the time keeping at the forefront who this work is really about, who it's really going to affect. It affects your teachers in a great way, because your teachers have seen these things for many, many years and have not always had the voice or the platform to say something about it. So these experiences have been cathartic. They've been amazing. They've been hard. And we are here for it. And I just want to say that for me, I appreciate the opportunity to be in a school district that is so forward and are thinking about addressing these issues. Because when it comes down to it, it's really about our students, which is why we're very privileged tonight to hear from someone who is going to directly affect, who is directly affected.
Hello. Again, I'm Megan Ferguson. I'm mom to Stephen and Shyla. How this, yes. How this work is relevant, so I kind of live in this unique position as not only just a community member and then a parent with kids in the community, but I also work at FAVE. So the work that Westchester does also is mirrored by the work that's being done at FAVE, and even in my own instruction and my own experience. I've noticed, first, Ms. Lofshin has been very responsive. I know I've always had conversations with the teachers each year, with Ms. Nesbitt since my son started at Westchester. And his kindergarten year, he's the only black boy in the school. So it kind of makes him very, visible, say for like any event, because 75 kids walk in and then there's him. And then with my daughter, she definitely experienced some questions about like her hair or why this or why that. My husband is not from here, he's from Trinidad, so there's other cultural elements in there. So I am appreciative of the school in that they've been very responsive to even including specific book choices that look like you, or that she can bring home a book that talks about her hair. Sometimes I contribute a book about don't touch my hair, because there's whole things that go into being who you are, and the school is very open and responsive to that idea. I did participate in the Privilege Walk, which honestly is not new for me, right? And it is sometimes exhausting to always be the friend in the back. And that's a conversation I think like parents of color often have, is that we're in the back, and then it's like, it's not new information, like I've known about redlining and I know about those things. And so the conversation we last had was, at the last meeting, was about, I am asking, and I think I could also ask the board, since I have this platform, that we are making it less optional. And again, like as I'm a community member and a staff member, as Ms. Nesbitt said, like you wake up in your skin, and that's not an option for me, and the issues that are present are not ones which I can opt out of. And so it's important that all of the kids get the work. So that's why I'm very grateful for the school and the work that they're doing, and my daughter's awareness. And when she talks about things in even history, it's very much representative of everyone's history, and it's accurately presented, and there's an awareness there, so that I'm also, by what she says, I'm able to glean what everyone is learning. And so then it helps to kind of shift, and then people don't really get the option to shy away or opt out of things, which is important for me as a community member. The weight shouldn't always fall on the people of color in the community. So I'm appreciative of them. I'm appreciative of you all for giving the space for that.
Thank you.
All right, so that is the end of our presentation. The work is still continuing. We have lots of great things happening over the next few months in the parent community. And we are trying to think of ways to involve parents, like Megan said, where it's not optional. And that will come in time. So do you have any questions for us?
I think it's really awesome, great work. I wondered could you go back to actually the first slide, or the one with the learning targets? And I think Wanda said it really well in your last comments, but I was sitting here looking at those learning targets thinking that if you had told me in November of 2015, when I first came here, that we would have learning targets like that up on the board, I would not have believed you that was possible. And it's really awesome. And a lot of this work happens right at the school level. So I appreciate all that you're doing and all those folks you're working with, because it is hard work. And I was really appreciate that this is the focus on the parents, right? Because that's another key constituency of what's going to impact how successful we are. So awesome job. Really great.
And today we spent, Wanda and I spent all day in interviews, and it was wonderful to have support from Dr. Banks giving us some questions that a team had vetted. and to be able to ask this to our candidates so that when they come on board, they know exactly who we are and what we expect. So just having all these resources right now is really making a difference, not only in our schools, but the people we're bringing in too.
Yeah, I just want to say, it makes me feel awkward to be thanked by you all. I mean, you all should be thanked. I mean, I know it's exhausting. We appreciate it, all of the work that you all are putting in and making it so important, because it does start with parents being informed, and having worked at Emory's campus for years trying to get people who don't want to show up to participate in the conversation. Raising children, it starts with the parents. So thank you all for coming up with ideas to get parents to have it. I mean, I can't imagine my father years ago showing up to a PTA meeting, which he would attend on occasion, and having this kind of a walk could be life defining. So thank you all for what you all are doing, and continue the work.
I was just going to say real quick, thank you all for facilitating that book study. I think it's such powerful work. And I wanted to thank Ms. Ferguson for being so genuine in her comments. Sometimes it can be re-traumatizing being at the end every time of that privilege walk. So thanks for your comments and feedback too.
Yeah. Having parents like Megan and other parents are truly partners in this work, and we're very thankful.
Thank you all. It's very meaningful. It's exciting to see what's happening. It's really just the first year that we've had all the teachers and staff trained in the Beyond Diversity, but I feel like it's given us a common language. And I'm just excited to see the progress, and thank you for your hard work. Thank you.
I ditto the same. Thank you so much for presenting. This might become my new favorite part of the board meeting. And what I'm most proud to see as well is that, and I said this, I think, at the last board meeting, that we're not just focusing on 1 month where we're just talking about it for 28 days and making this really, actually making it much bigger, like it's something special versus an everyday way of life. And so what we're starting to see finally is that it's rolling out into an everyday way of life, way of speaking, way of teaching, way of being, and even getting to the deeper roots of systematic racism, where we can take it from how we are personally feeling and actually dig into how we were raised and what we learned, year after year after year. So I really appreciate you all sharing the tough times, but then also, the things that you're excited about that can come from this. So thank you so much. All right, so it is now time for public comment. We have 7 speakers, and we'll give you 3 minutes apiece, so you'll see the little ticker when you come up. So when you come up, please give us your name and your association with the district, and we're happy to welcome you to public comments. So our first speaker is Tamaris Diaz. Tamaris Diaz, and I apologize if I'm saying your name incorrectly.
I'm a parent of an amazing student here in CSD. We've been here since 2010. We started our journey at College Heights, and he's currently at Renfro Middle School. I am also currently the president of the Special Education PTA for City Schools of Decatur. I just wanted to come here today and talk a little bit about, I saw the video of the previous board meeting, and I was super excited to see the proposed budget. Some additions that would benefit greatly our special education, gifted, and 504 IP community, and just wanted to come and support and mention that would be a great addition. Over the years, I saw the video with Dr. Doody mentioned, and as a parent and as part of the PTA for special education, have received a lot of feedback of parents and lived it, where the growth has been big, and seeing how our teachers are stretched thin as it is. There's a great need for our teachers to be trained and supported. So we would love to see this go through and have the support, things like the dyslexia bill and having that training, the support for the student supports, and having a student support center now at Renfro would be amazing. And also I know that the special education department has done great work in the past couple of years, and we've seen improvement, but there's more work to do. And just having, for example, a lead special ed teacher at each individual level to train, ask questions, and support teachers as needed, as opposed to waiting for the next time, because they're at different schools and they have to wait until the next time they're at that school, would be a great benefit to everyone, to our community, to support our children. So I would just wanted to say thank you for those additions, and please approve it because it's a great need.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Suzanne Anderson.
Hi, my name is Susan Anderson, and I am a parent of 3 kids who have come through City Schools of Decatur with IEPs or 504s. And I also am serving as the treasurer for the Special Education PTA right now, and am an educator by profession as well. I think it's funny that we're talking about this month, because this is, of course, Disability Awareness Month. So it seems appropriate that we're talking about taking steps forward for our kids with differences. I can say some things that I don't think anybody here would find that they didn't know already, but just to sort of call it to our attention, to remember that 1 in 7 kids is born with a developmental delay in the United States. 1 in 5 has some sort of learning difference. And also that 1 in 16, these are national, not City School Decatur statistics, but that 1 in 16 has an IEP. So we'll see also that there's obviously a gap between people with learning differences and people who perhaps could use more support. All that I wanted to come around to saying that I really also am excited to see that there is provision in the proposed budget for giving more support to these kids and to their teachers, because we know, again, not about City Schools of Decatur, but nationally, 30% of our teachers in general ed do not feel adequately equipped to teach kids with learning differences and disabilities. So I just want to applaud City Schools of Decatur for trying to step in and provide more support for those teachers, so that we can move increasingly towards the least restrictive environment for all kids, and that we can move towards greater inclusion, which we know from studies benefits not just the kids with disabilities, but with kids in the mainstream population as well. So just don't have a lot more to say, except that hopefully, having come here and taken the time to say this, that that you will see that we really support this measure. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Lisa Johnston.
Hello. Hello. Hi. My name is Lisa Johnston. I've lived here for 16 years. I have a 12-year-old son who started College Heights all the way through Renfro. I am a Renfro teacher. This is my 3rd year there. So there's 2 things I just wanted to bring to our attention. One was the Renfro garden renovation. At the previous board meeting, I heard that it had been approved. However, several months ago, so I got to read from it. Several months ago, a garden renovation at Renfro was approved by the school board. It has been difficult to get an update of when this project will begin. The instructor wrote a grant, and it was approved by the DEF to construct a shade structure in the garden area to be used by all RMS students. When this grant was written, CSD agreed to add a ramp and a pad so that the structure could be used by students with limited mobility, specifically our students in wheelchairs. CSD did approve this. The raised beds have already been built to accommodate those students. The instructor would just like to move forward with the grant monies, making the garden classroom a more comfortable place for all students. And we're wondering, is CSD planning to move forward with the approved plan? If not, is an alternative plan being considered? And should we move forward with a design construction utilizing the existing ramp? So just wanting to know where we're going. Second thing is composting. So last year, Renfro Middle School composted. I'm not sure if all grades did, but sixth grade definitely did, and it was a huge success. And I saw in the Winona Park video, they had the plastic trays and the kids were dumping, and we don't really do that at Renfro, and it's something that I find I would like to really begin. So last year we did compost, which allowed for everything with the compost now. It allowed for everything except for plastic to be thrown into the bins. From January to April of last year, 2019, we kept 884 pounds of waste out of landfills and produced 88 pounds of compost. I remember that some mornings the custodians wouldn't even have to take out the trash from the morning breakfasts. Students volunteered, not any complaints. My students, when I said that we were doing this, I said, would we like to participate? And my students filled those gaps every single day. So the students are definitely on board. Lunch, parents would come and supervise, so it actually brought a lot of community support and parental involvement. And so we thought it would be a great community involvement, very little effort with a huge outcome, and we'd really like to see that happening at Renfro. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keon Zanavandi.
Hi, my name is Keon Sanavandi, and I'm a sophomore at Decatur High School. And I was looking for the school board's help for the past 2 years that I've been at the school, and I think I and other advanced students have had issues where taking more advanced classes beyond what the school offers, even if sources such as Georgia Virtual School may offer them, has been a serious issue, especially this year in 10th grade. Specifically with chemistry. The Decatur High School offers 2 chemistry courses, normal and advanced chemistry. It used to offer an AP chemistry class, and it no longer does. Going into 10th grade, I had some background in chemistry, and I was interested in taking an AP chemistry course. However, seeing that the school did not offer it, I took advanced chemistry. In late October, I learned that I could take AP Chemistry through Georgia Virtual Schools, and that would allow me to learn AP Chemistry content. That would allow me to learn AP Chemistry content and get it on my transcript and take the AP test. However, and I submitted a form to my counselor and put it in. I was told I would get a response. A month later, I got no response, and I had to ask the counselor what happened, and I was told that the form was denied. The form was denied, and no reason was given. I sent an email, got a few reasons, and my parents went and talked to the school to discuss what could be done to allow me to take that AP Chemistry course. The excuses the school gave changed over time. They started from there being no procedure to do this, which is untrue, as I know one of my close friends, whose name I won't use, one of my close friends has done this exact same thing with computer science, switched out of a class midway through at the semester break to take AP Computer Science. However, I was told that there was no such procedure to do so. Then my parents went and talked to the school administration, and we were told that it could not be done because of financial reasons, that they wouldn't get paid, as I'm no longer in that class. This also isn't true, as the school board code, the state school board code that creates Georgia Virtual School specifically says that if a class is being taken in school, the school gets paid at the amount that they would get paid were I to be in an actual class. Then, as I went and escalated up the chain, and my parents escalated up the chain to allow me to take that class, I was given another reason, that it would be too hard. This again is untrue. I know a student who has done this. And the fact that I'm not allowed to switch out of that class is a serious issue, as I have to spend 5 hours a week in a class which is the same thing that I'm learning in AP Chemistry after I managed to sign up. And I'm spending a lot of time doing that, which stops me from doing extracurriculars like debate and robotics. So I'm hoping the school board can help other advanced students who want to do the same thing.
Thank you.
And next is Hamid Sanavandi.
My name is Hamid Sanavandi. I'm a father of Keon Sanavandi. And the reason I'm here, I just want to bring Keon here so somebody in the school system would tell him why he cannot take the course he needs. I have reached to every layer of this school system, and every single one has stonewalled what he needs. This issue is ongoing. It's not a new issue. I had this issue from kindergarten with Kian. I've heard there's no gifted program for kindergartner. I heard, oh, he cannot. Every single time I'm getting the same thing. And the only excuse, the last excuse I heard was this, I'm too busy. And I said, can you tell Kian how can it be done? He said, no, it's your issue. You tell him. He's here. He's asking for your help. He needs to resolve this issue. And the reason I'm here is this. This issue has to be resolved one way or another. This is, if I bring 12 people here and sit here and tell them the exact same thing, I promise you every 12 of them are going to say, why? Why would he has to sit there? I brought his PSAT. I have one copy. I'm going to just pass it so you guys can see. I brought him an ACT test. He told me not to bring it up. Everybody congratulated him except his principal, the school district. He actually got a perfect score. And nobody in the school system said, by the way, thank you, good job. Everybody else did. He got letters from a whole bunch of universities and a 10th grade. Apparently, everybody noticed except the school system, their achievement. And I never thought in my life I'm going to sit here say that he's going to achieve what he achieved despite of school. I was hoping it'd be because of school. But apparently it's becoming like despite of school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Claire Schneckschneider.
I just wanted to take a moment to just say thank you for the equity training. Makes my heart really happy. I cried. So that is just amazing, Michelle and Ms. Nesbitt. I am here to dovetail on Ms. Johnston's request for composting at Renfro. As you know, we piloted the program last year in April. I understand that we're going to be piloting it again at Renfro in April. And I don't really see the point why we're piloting again when we already had such a successful program, which we already talked about. We've already been in school for 130 school days, and we saved 40 bags of trash from the landfill when we piloted for a month. I added that up, did a little math. 5,200 bags of trash have gone to the landfill just from Renfro because we haven't been composting. This is low-hanging fruit. Our kids recycle at home. We want to be a green city. Kids are interested. The Girl Scout troop's going to do it. I'm so glad. I know that Dr. Duty's daughter is one of those Girl Scouts. They're going to pilot it at Renfro. I would ask for you to please do this district-wide in the new year. There's no reason not to. And I would like to have a response on that. And I think it is it budgeted for Renfro only next year? Or
Something
will it?
I'm addressing during the budget item. I can
Okay,
talk to.
great. I will wait for that with bated breath. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Kathleen Crother? Catherine. What did I say? Oh, Catherine. I'm sorry. I said Kathleen.
It's okay. I go by lots of things. Good evening. I just wanted to add my voice. My name's Catherine Crowther. I'm a parent of two boys who've been in the school system from College Heights all the way through. Now I have one in Renfro, one at Fave. Both, one has an IEP, one has a 504. So I'm here to add my voice to the support for additional funding for our exceptional students. I'm also an educator myself, so I understand the challenges and how much help teachers need to give our children that support. So I also serve on the special ed PTA, so I wanted to sort of amplify our support. And I just wanted to say a couple of things because I love everything that we're talking about as it relates to equity and diversity and inclusion. And I just want to remind us all that disability and exceptionality cuts across all of those demographics. So when we're thinking about equity, we always need to be thinking about that as well. And that Decatur is just such an amazing place. We've just had wonderful teachers several of them are in here who know my boys. And we've had such great experiences through our time in City Schools of Decatur. But I know that the one thing that if anything we could do to improve the situation is to give the teachers more support, to give them more opportunities to learn about the different types of supports that they can give. And at the end of the day, I feel like because Decatur is the vanguard in so many ways, that this is our opportunity to not just sort of lift up the students, our best students, or the students who shine, but all students, the students who need the support, to lift them up. Some of you may have seen that graphic of when you have the three children trying to see over the fence, right? And then you put them on the boxes, and so you get equality. But if the boxes are the same, they can't see over. But if you give them different boxes, then they can see over. But the ultimate, when we reach justice is when we take the fence down, right? So I'd love to see Decatur become a school district that leads the way in sort of structural changes that mean that we're not just trying to come behind and support where we need to with the deficits and the problems, but be out in front and be proactively looking for ways to always support our exceptional students through school and onward. I mean, I'm looking at Decatur as a place to be thinking about assisted living facilities and employment opportunities and ways to work with the community. So this is, I think, the best place to start. So thank you again for all you do and for your support for this funding. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that will be.
I'm sorry, I think when I submitted, Claire had not clicked submit. So both of us submitted.
Sure.
So
come on up.
I do have a comment.
Why don't you go ahead and share your name? We know it, but just so other people know it, so it's part of the record.
MC Kunle. Yeah, everybody. No, my name is Kunle Oguneye. I'm here in two capacities: as a parent of two children, 8th grader and 5th grader, and then also as the education committee chair of the Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights. So my comment is on the digital divide. Two questions with the concerns around coronavirus and the possibility that schools may close. How do we accommodate the families that don't have access to technology at home? I think it's a big concern that we need to seriously think about in the event that that happens. And then secondly, also taking that further, just reinforcing, and please, I appreciate all the work we're doing, reinforcing the fact that virtually 100% of the learning that children do at home now is on the computer. iReady, iExcel, Khan Academy, and the teachers are recommending, which is great. But again, those children who don't have access to that, they're being left behind. So I just continue to bring it up that we need to have a policy in place that accommodates those who don't have. My comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to reference Westchester.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to give them a shout out. There was something I read there. The first bullet point: parents will be able to identify and express examples of privilege in their lives or the world in which they live. I feel like I noticed the privilege, the fact that all my children have a computer and have access to Wi-Fi. So thank you for that.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, now we're moving to superintendent's comment.
Yeah.
Deputy?
Couple things. One thing I just want to take a moment to recognize Monique and Adina. Can you stand up and wave for us, please, so people see who you are? Monique is leading our finance department during this period of transition, and Adina, you already sat down. Adina is leading our
halfway up too,
yeah.
and then you went right back down.
She did not want to stand up.
No,
Did you see
she
that?
didn't.
That
She
look.
didn't.
She was glaring at me. Adina is leading efforts in our staff support department, or human resources that other people call it, during this transition as well. So they are doing a great job, working lots of long hours and taking on things they've never had to take on before. So I just wanted to thank you both for that, and thanks for being here. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I have a couple comments. I'll start with some comments about coronavirus. As you know, we shared another communication today. I want to make sure that folks know that everything that we're sharing and all the resources we're gathering, we are putting on the website at csdecatur.net/COVID-19, COVID-19. So if anybody feels like they've missed something or they want to dig deeper on things, we have a lot of resources there. We also have a frequently asked questions page there that, or part of that, as questions come up where we are answering them. So I really encourage people to check that. And thanks to everybody who has worked on that, but especially to Courtney, Noel, and Lily have really taken the push on that. So thank you. Appreciate that. There's a lot going on, obviously, with coronavirus, and it's a rapidly changing situation. It's a little overwhelming trying to keep track of all the different agencies that think that they know what we should be doing, but don't necessarily all give you the same advice. Everybody thinks they're in charge, and at the same time, nobody wants to be in charge. And so it's a really complicated situation. I did want to make sure folks know that all the superintendents in Atlanta are communicating. We are making sure we all have the same information, that we know what's happening, so that we are coordinated in whatever our responses are. We are beginning an effort towards the digital divide comments. We are beginning an effort. Tonight it kicked off with the governor to push communications companies to open up their networks during this unusual time, so that if we do have to send kids home, if we can get them a device, they can get them some internet access. And so that is a push that we are pushing for in Metro Atlanta. Also regarding to the digital divide, it's a topic we talk about a lot. Clearly, can't just be solved by a school district, right? We do have a lot of resources. Eston has been working with his staff to make sure that if it comes to the point we're gonna have a long-term absence, they can break down like those Chromebook carts and send them home with kids. So if a kid doesn't have a device, we can give them a device to get home. It's a little harder to get them connected to something, and so I'm really hoping that we can work with other partners like DHA and the City of Decatur and some others to work on that access aspect. In the past, the answer has been go to a coffee shop or go to the library or something. Well, this is an extraordinary time where those might not be options. And so we will see. It is something we're working on. It's something we're very aware of. We're also very aware of the needs of our students who depend on us for breakfast and lunch. And it's something that Noel is working on with his staff to try to figure out. And part of it will depend on what limitations get put on us by the health department and what we're allowed to do. But it's something that we are actively planning for, of how do we help keep getting food to those kids who depend on that on a regular basis. So lots of things in addition to all the curriculum and instruction and all the other issues. We have a team working on this, and so we will keep people updated, but just wanted to make sure folks are aware of some of those items that we're working on. Wanted to share that registration for the 2021 school year is really off to a great start. One of the big changes we made last year that has been very successful, I don't know if you all recall or maybe experienced this, but my first couple of years I would walk in on the first day of registration and there would be people camped out by the front door, literally camped out by the front door, because it was a first come, first served, and you wanted to make sure to get in. Beginning last year, we started instituting appointments. Revolutionary, right? Sign up for an appointment, come at your time, and we'll have somebody ready, because it wasn't a first come, first served. Everybody had a seat, right? And so we worked hard to communicate that, and this year is going better than ever, and it's much more efficient that way. We still will accept drop-ins, so if people didn't know about the appointments or they just show up or whatever, we will try to work them in, but the appointments are our first responsibility. So. One of the things I want to talk about related to equity, because we were talking about how groundbreaking some of the work, and I just want to give people a heads up of we're taking it to a whole nother level on Monday. At the high school, we are going to do what are called racial affinity groups. And racial affinity groups are an opportunity where people get together with other people that identify as the same race as themselves and have some very challenging conversations. And so it is going to be an amazing experience. For those of you who have Experience Beyond Diversity, it takes that to a whole nother level and really challenges a lot of what you think. And it's our first time doing that in the district. Many of our staff have gone to conferences and things where they have affinity groups, and it's an amazing experience. But I'm very excited, a little bit nervous. You never know how people are going to handle these sorts of things. They alluded to from Westchester, I think maybe Wanda had said it, like, we're just going to do it, right? We're going for it and we're trying it and we'll see how it goes. So who knows what's going to happen on Monday, but whatever it is, now you know, right? So the other thing I want to share is just a quick update on what was that? I'll just share it right now. I was going to share it during the budget, but just to point out, composting is one of the items in our budget. There's budget for this year, there's budget for next year. I'm really hopeful that the budget for next year is enough that if we're successful getting it started this year, we may expand it to other schools right away. If not, we may have to look at a phased approach, but it is something that we're well aware of. And I'll just share that Krista, the teacher who does the garden at Renfro, reached out to me this morning with similar questions to yours. So I will copy you when I respond to her. So the last thing that I want to share is also related to budget, but I want to share it during my comment section because it just is such a big deal. We have done a lot of work to address salaries in our school district, and it's something we've been concerned about for a long time, and we've talked about it. We talked about it at our last board meeting. We talked about it at our last work session. We were particularly interested in tackling first the salaries of our lowest paid employees because they're the ones that we could have the most impact on the fastest. And when I brought the budget last month, I was able to analyze some of the structures. I was able to finish that work, and I am really pleased to report that we are bringing forward a budget for approval tonight that has, for our lowest paid employees, on average, a 15 to 20% increase in pay from this year to next year, which is fantastic. I'm really pleased that we're able to do this. Our goal, some of you are aware of this, but our goal is we want at any given step on any given salary schedule, we want to rank first, second, or third among metro area school districts. That's our goal. We can't be first. We really tried. We wanted to be first on everything, but some districts have just made some crazy decisions on how they're paying people. And so we just couldn't be first on everything. But even third on everything is still a very competitive salary. And so we're excited to do that. The details of that are in the budget presentation for those who are interested if you want to see what are those in actual hourly wages, and I'll actually pull that up during the budget presentation if you want to stick around for that. In addition to those changes to those salary schedules, all of the other salary schedules, we did both the so this is interesting. I'll just share it right now. We put in the $2,000 increase that the governor had proposed for teachers for the coming school year. As many of you have heard, as of today, the House Budget Committee has cut that to $1,000, and they have decided to not have it start until September, which is a way of saying it's a $1,000 raise without it being a $1,000 raise. But we had talked about this possibility at the table before, and we still intend to continue with the $2,000 raise. It's just really important to us that our teachers are extremely valuable to us, and over the years we have fallen a little behind and are less competitive than we want to be, and we have talked about one strategy of being more competitive is in years like this when other districts may not be able to give as big of a raise. If we can, that's one way to catch up. And so we're excited to do that. It may mean that we have to dip into our reserve fund just a little bit more, but thankfully we have a healthy enough reserve fund that that's something that we're able to do. And so I'm pleased to announce that. And then all of the other employees that aren't in those groups are getting a 2% cost of living increase and a step increase as well, which averages out to about 3% or so also. So I'm very pleased to be reporting that, and I will talk in more detail in the budget item itself, but just wanted to share that because it's such big news. So those are the extent of my comments.
Thank you. Okay, so I just had a few comments for the chair's report. Just wanted to piggyback on the coronavirus update in case there are those who didn't receive. We are sending out newsletters and updates, but for those that may not have received it, what we know now is that there are 19 cases currently in Georgia, Many of you've heard of the Fulton County school employees. Fulton County schools were closed. We are aware of 2 presumptive cases here in DeKalb County, but they have not been confirmed by the CDC as of yet. As we know, things are changing all the time, so we could know as early as tomorrow. As of today, City Schools of Decatur has not received any notice of any confirmed cases, so we're going to continue what we're doing. But of course, we are in close communication, like Dr. Duty said, with all of the other superintendents in the metro Atlanta areas. We're following all of the protocols, the bus drivers, the teachers. The staff is doing an excellent job with the children and reinforcing how they can keep the germs away from each other, away from their face. We're encouraging anyone to stay home if you're not feeling well, including your children, if there are any fevers. So we're definitely keeping this message at the forefront. My daughter comes home every day showing me how she learns to wash her hands and fist bump and elbow bump instead of, hugging friends and things like that. So I just wanted to, reiterate that we're continuing to broadcast what we know as soon as we know it, and hopefully that you feel comforted that we're trying to keep you all informed. Wanted to also point out, it's just an action item, so we probably won't go over it, but we're talking a lot about equity in different avenues in our curriculum, with our parents, with our teachers. And one thing I did want to point out is also in our contracting, and I know that we had talked in years past of making sure that we're more inclusive when we're contracting different vendors to work at our schools, and making sure that we are talking to those that are local, those that are women, and those that are minorities. And so I just wanted to point out that I noticed we are working with a vendor we've worked with for some years, but again, she is a female, she is local owned, she locally raised, locally lived, locally works, graduated from Decatur High. And I think that message we're also sending, that you can grow up here, graduate from here, and have a very successful career here if that's what you would like. So I appreciate that we are spreading the tentacles of equity throughout, every aspect of our district. And I just wanted to give a couple of shout outs. We don't have time probably to do them all because Courtney and Sarah, when they put these together, they could probably give me 5 or 6 pages because our school is so amazing. But I'll just read a couple of them. This year, we took 84 kids to the Close Up Washington, D.C. trip, where the students toured the national capitol. They went to committee hearings. They met with public officials. They really did represent our city, the city of Decatur, with pride. My son personally went to this, and he is one of those teenagers who doesn't typically show much emotion at all. I usually get yeah, Mom. But he was very, very talkative, and shared a lot about his trip. And they visited the Library of Congress and Howard University, which was one of his favorite parts of the trip. And I was just very happy to see so many children participating, and the diversity in the group of the 84 students was absolutely beautiful. And I'm just hoping that will continue for years to come. Congrats to the DHS Science Olympiad team who took 4th place in the region last weekend. Huge congratulations to a 6th grader. Her name is Maggie McClung. She's from Renfro, and she won the Entire Trees Atlanta Arbor Day Art and Essay Contest. Way to go, Maggie. And DHS Performing Arts presents the 42nd Street play. It's opening this Friday, March 13th, and so don't forget to get your tickets at decaturperforms.org. If you've never been to one of the DHS plays or musicals, I highly suggest it. It is very, very entertaining. And thank you all for participating in the 2019-2020 Young Georgia Authors Writing Competition. So the following are the district level winners, and they will advance to the Metro RISA level of competition. So we have Ariel, Theodore, Peter, Siddharth, Benjamin, Eleanor, Jack, Lizelle, Nora, Hannah, Jackson, and Adam, and Lucas. So congratulations to you all. And that is all for me today.
I have
tonight.
one more comment I
Oh,
thought
one more
of, if you
comment?
don't mind.
No, not at all.
I learned tonight, thanks to James, that a group called 24/7 Wall Street has designed metrics to figure out what school district in each state are you most likely to be a successful student in, to succeed the most. And 24/7 Wall Street named City Schools of Decatur the most likely for students that are the most likely to succeed in our district of any district in the state of Georgia. So that was pretty awesome. So just learned about that.
Oh, I wanted to say one more thing too, and then Heather wanted to say something. I just wanted to address Keon. I wanted to thank you for coming to the board meeting and for speaking to, you can sit, it's okay. It's okay, you can stay. But I just wanted to thank you. I know that it can be a little nerve-wracking sometimes to come up and talk to us, so I hope we weren't too intimidating, because we don't try to be. I thank you for your comments, and I will get with Dr. Duty so we can talk about, your situation and see what can be done. But I just wanted to let you know, we don't typically make comments back at you during the meeting, so we weren't ignoring you, but wanted to let you know I did hear you. I wrote everything down, and I'll see what I can do, okay? Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I just wanted to mention something, and I think it was probably buried in Tasha's list, but I was a chaperone on a 3-day trip to Athens with the chorus from the high school and the middle school, and both schools were extremely well represented. There are elite schools around Atlanta that we had 50 kids from our high school qualify for the state honors chorus, and that is a tremendous number. There was hardly any school that had even a fifth of the showing that we did. So I was very proud of our school, and I felt proud that we support the arts, and it really shows. So I was very grateful to Dr. Sparks, I believe, Elise Sparks at the high school. I'm not there yet, but and Dr. Hirschhorn at Renfro. And they put in a lot of extra effort, an entire weekend, and I'm sure a lot of extra practice with these kids. So just thought that was worth mentioning.
Can I add something real quick? I wanted to give a shout out to the Decatur High School's Black Student Union. Did a phenomenal job. They invited 2 of the original members of the Atlanta Student Movement to come, and they held a panel discussion. And the 2 high school students, it was Genesis and another young lady, did a phenomenal job asking questions to these 2 original members, Mayor Emerita Elizabeth Wilson, and then there was a judge there who took over for Oscar. He beat Oscar Mitchell, who was the judge who sentenced Dr. King to prison when he was stopped over by Emory for having expired license. But they did a phenomenal job. And then I was able to attend Fave's Black History Month program, which was just wonderful. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to the faculty members that helped with both of those programs, and to the students that participated. Yeah.
Anybody else?
They did a wax Black History Museum at Talley Street as well, ran after school, and it was amazing. And my daughter told me it was the event of the year, and we had to go. Put on by the teachers and the after-school kids, very impressive. And Miss Wilson was a character was put on. I saw her leaving there as well, so she's keeping quite the calendar these days.
Yes, she does.
And then Keon can probably also tell you the debate team, because I emailed you about it, are not the novice debate team for Decatur High School beat all these private schools and won the novice division.
Awesome.
At the University of Georgia. My good friend Shante Jordan, who's the debate coach there, texted me way too late at night and said Decatur High School had won, had beaten Montgomery Bell and Alpha and all these schools in the finals, and Decatur had never won, and it was very impressive. So good job to the debate team. Yeah.
Awesome. Congratulations. Good stuff. All right, so now we're moving on to consent items.
And just a reminder, we only need to approve items 1 through 4.
All right, so motion to approve the personal report, school nutrition, financial report, and the DHS security camera update.
I move to approve all the consent items from 1 to 4.
Second.
Consent items have been approved. So now we'll move on to the action items. So we'll start with the laptop So we just have a change? You wanna start with
Yeah,
that
just
one?
a quick change. So, when the lease was first put together, we were working off the last budget, which had, about 14 new school staff. The current budget has about 29 new school staff, and we obviously want to be able to provide them with laptops if that's what we're gonna provide. So, we need to, change the maximum value on that lease to, not to exceed $825,000. That will accommodate those new FTE. We have confirmed with Apple that we can update that quantity and it does not affect our 0% interest. And we do have the money in the SPLOST budget to cover that. We can answer any questions if you'd like, but that's the only change.
Is there a way to just write it to where it's pinned to staff and faculty?
What? Sorry.
So instead, it seems like it should be written that way, right? Where it's like, the contract is, we give one for each new.
Yeah, the difference is because we have an actual dollar amount here, so it would be hard to say what that dollar amount would be.
Fair enough.
Yep. So we do need an action on that, a vote on that.
Okay.
What page is that? Is it a page?
So all in favor to approve the laptop lease not to exceed 825,000? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, all right. Board is in agreement. All right, so now we're moving on to the second action item, development report.
Yeah, this is just an informational report. It has been updated from last time. You may recall, we took it off the consent agenda because we weren't really approving it.
Right.
But if there is anything you want to discuss, Heidi or Noel could certainly do that. Otherwise, we can move on to the next item. Either way.
I did have a question for Heidi or Noel. Was there anything kind of stark or different that you noticed in this last report that you feel like should be
No.
highlighted?
No, there haven't been many changes that have happened that impact like everything that's partially complete is still partially complete.
Okay.
You know, I was hoping that some stuff would get done so I could move it to the next
Right.
place, but everything's pretty much in the same spot.
Okay, perfect.
The city commissioners, two of them asked me questions about this week, just in passing. Or do they have copies of this? Do we know?
It's public. I mean, it's posted to our thing. I do share it with the group that we go to.
Staff on it.
Okay.
So it's all working through the staff.
Okay.
Side of things.
But I do love that they're reading our report. That's really awesome.
Should be. It's
So
high-quality stuff.
We will get them a copy of it. I will send it to Andrea tomorrow.
Okay. Great.
You guys have any questions?
No, but thank you for keeping up
Thank
with
you.
it.
Yes.
When I think about how much we know now compared to how much we knew 3 years ago or 2 years ago even, it's much different. I feel like now I'm less nervous about all of this because we understand it. We have actual numbers. And just knowing that we're keeping up with it on a monthly basis, and we'll begin to fill in the blanks as these new buildings become populated, and then we'll have even better estimates and better, more accurate ways to estimate what future growth will mean to us. It's much appreciated, so thank you.
And I would just like to emphasize, we couldn't do it without the partnership with the city. That's where we get this information. They've invited us to the meetings, and then Noel and Heidi do the hard work of distilling what they hear at these meetings into this report, which is sometimes a very challenging task. But I really appreciate that the city is a great partner that allows us to do that, or else we couldn't provide this. So.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
All right, next item, budget.
Budget.
2021.
So we're going to switch over to my
Everybody's
computer
favorite
here.
topic, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Get out your notebooks and pens.
It depends on the year, right?
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to try to just go over some highlights of the budget. As you know, we presented a budget at the, what was that, February meeting, and there have been some changes, so that's what I will focus on for the most part. And then at the end of this, because this is the, what we intend to be the final version, I would like to have a vote on it. And then this is what we will move forward with as we start to fill positions and send out contracts. Just a quick reminder, we still are going to do the formal budgeting process that is traditionally done in May and June. And when we get our new finance person on board, that'll be something they can can lead. We don't intend to change this budget at all, but if for some reason something drastically changed and we had to, we would be coming back at that point, but we intend to bring this exact same budget forward, and then we can go through any hearings we have to have or things like that at that time. But your vote tonight is to approve this, and it will be basically allow us to send out contracts and things with actual salaries in them for next year, rather than just estimating or using this year's salaries, which will be very positively received by our staff. So, a couple things I mentioned earlier. The previous budget had 14 or 15 positions on it. We went back to the principals and worked with them to figure out what are their super high level needs and what are their next level of needs, and then what are their third level of needs. And so the number went from 15, which was our initial estimate, to a total of 29 FTE worth of positions, which I will go over in a second. It is a lot of positions, but there are a lot of needs out there and some things that we really need to address, and we were able to fit in the budget, so we went forward with that. I talked about the increases to the salary schedules. I'll show some specifics with that in just a minute. And then the rest of those things are items that were on the previous budget. As I went through the process, I did find some efficiencies, so you will see that $1.4 million down there I was able to kind of squeeze out of the existing budget to make room for some of these items. Where's my mouse? There it is. And stop me if you have questions as I'm going through, or save them for the end, whatever you want to do. On page 11 are the details of those pay scale changes that I was talking about. So those are all the scales that had a change other than just the standard 2% or the teacher salary schedule that I talked about, the $2,000. These are all those other scales. And so just to show you a couple examples, so for bus drivers, the starting wage used to be $13.49. That's what it is this year. Next year it will be $17. That infects currently 19 employees, and on average will be another $3,785 for them. Another example would be the school nutrition workers. Their current starting wage is $9.71. Next year it will be $12, and that affects 40 people. So some great impacts there, and so I'm really pleased to show that. And this information we will be sending out so that employees will send out a communication this evening, letting them know that, assuming you approve this, what we're doing, and then we'll also be sending letters to the employees in the coming weeks, letting them know exactly how it impacts them individually, so they can see exactly what their rates and things are going to be next year. So that's the pay scale changes for the bigger increases that I was speaking of. The budget requests overall have not changed. This page is the same as before, but just to highlight a couple things, we heard it in the comment earlier about the Decatur Student Center. We are adding 1.5 FTE there, and then we are also adding a position to start off in a Renfro Student Center as well, which is supported by a grant from DEF of $50,000 for the first couple years until we can absorb the full costs. So that's great. Those are some new school-based staff. We're working on the reading support positions and what those are going to look like. You heard about the special education positions tonight in several of the comments. So we're increasing a lot of support in that area. I'll also show you there's some special ed teacher positions that we're adding as well. Those are the biggest changes with the staff that were in those proposals that had originally come, and that's the composting at RMS right there yeah, there you go. The budget year, we were able to cover some requests with current year funds. We've been able to do this for a couple years when we see things that are things that we have enough money in the current year for various reasons, and let's just get them done and taken care of. So that's what that next page is, and you'll also see composting at RMS right there. That's the funding for this year. Okay, to get us through that part. And then the following page is what are things we didn't fund and why didn't we fund them? And so the activities athletics assistant director, I don't know, is that posted yet, Adina, or are we still working on that? The assistant athletic and activities director. Not yet. So we are working on that. We are changing how we approach our facilities usage. As you know, we have had to have an employee dedicated to doing facility usage because we've had so much use by movie industry, TV industry, things like that. That has been very disruptive to a lot of schools, and has required us to invest more money in supporting it than we get in the fees to have it. And so we are changing that. That employee is moving on at the end of the year to a different position elsewhere. And so we are going to repurpose that position and create an assistant activities and athletics director. And so this will basically be the counterpart to Rodney Thomas at the high school. And one of the key things that is not supported if we don't have that other position is the management of the Performing Arts Center. And so I talked to Rodney about the only way I could do this is if they figured out how to take on those roles. And I suggested perhaps doing like a student internship program or something like that, because we have students who would be very interested in learning how do you run light boards, how do you do sound systems, how do you do all this stuff. And so they know that that is going to be their responsibility to figure out how that works. And they loved the idea of trying to incorporate students into that and what that looks like. So we are going to move forward with that idea, and the details are being worked out, but that position will be posted pretty soon. On the following page are those 29 FTE that we talked about. So you hear a lot about why don't we add more people at schools? Why don't we? Well, part of it is I don't think we do a good job of explaining how many people we add at schools all the time. And so I thought it was a little bit helpful to see it actually listed out. But you'll see there are a couple things going on here. Some of these are positions that are currently less than full-time that we're making full-time. Some of them are brand new positions. Most of the brand new positions are related to growth. Because we're going to have more students there. We talked last time about why some of these are not necessarily the most efficient approach because of the way we've structured our schools. That's one of the reasons we need some of these teachers and other staff. But these are requests. These came straight from the principals. Maggie and the principals worked very hard to figure out what do we absolutely have to have and what are the things that are like that next level of maybe we could get by, but it would sure make things better if we could get it, and those all are included here. And at the bottom of that list, you see those 5 special ed teachers. So that will be an additional 5 teachers beyond what we have now, and Francis will work to determine exactly where those end up. So that's yet to be determined. So those are the highlights from that. The good news is because of efficiencies that were found in the budget, you may recall the amount of fund balance we were having to use in the last version was somewhere around 400,000. In this version, even with all those changes, is about 834,000 in order to balance the budget. And so that leaves us with a 13.3% unspent balance, which is even a little higher than we would necessarily want. If the budget for at the state passes the House version, that unspent balance will go down, or we will have to decide not to designate as much. Right now, we're still designating $5 million for like future capital projects or something like that. Depending on the impact of what finally gets passed as the state budget, we may have to tweak either that number or go a little lower on our fund balance. I'll just remind you that in the past, what we shot for was a 10% unspent fund balance. And so we're still right within that range, even after we have to pay potentially some more on a local funds for those teacher salary changes. So that's a very quick overview of the budget. Are there any questions that I can address that haven't been addressed already?
No, I just want to say that's probably because it's the 3rd time we're seeing this, which is wonderful because it's only March. So I want to thank you and your staff for your work. This is the first year that we have tried this approach where we have started looking at the budget sooner, and we are approving what we think will be very, very close to the final version of it already in March, which used to be in May. This makes a lot more sense, and I'm excited about that, both for being able to communicate more clearly with our teachers about their contracts, but also for better planning, for better recruiting. So thank you for your hard work.
Awesome.
I've really appreciated the process this year.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Because when we were at new school board member training offered through Georgia School Board Association, they couldn't believe that we were already finished with our budget because everyone else was just starting to look at budgets. And so, so great job, and I know the teachers are going to be excited about knowing for sure what they can expect to get paid.
Good.
Yeah.
There are many of them in the room. You explained composting a little differently each time. Can you just revisit that?
Sure.
For me? So the 5,000.
So
for this
$5,000
year
is
making sure that the programming as it exists can spend on the funds to make sure that it gets kicked off, and then the 10,000 currently says RMS, but part of that is to make sure that it can go on.
Right now, okay, so the $5,000 for Renfro is this year's budget, current funds right now, and that is for things like if they need new containers for the service that comes picks them up, things like that. And then the Girl Scouts are also supporting some of that, like some sign printing and some video creation and things. The $10,000 is also right now designated for RMS because that's our estimate of what an annual cost would be. What we're hopeful is that we can find some efficiencies and not have to use that all at RMS. Partially because we're spending some of the money right now. And so if we can, we will reallocate some of that to composting elsewhere if we're successful at RMS.
Let's go Girl Scouts.
Exactly.
And then, can you talk a little bit more about the special education FTE at the TBD?
Yes, so
Amazing how that process is going to go.
yeah, so Francis, you can correct me if I start to speak wrong, okay? Just tug on your ear. She's getting ready. We go through a process where Francis looks at the needs throughout the district in order to allocate. So her process is very much like the process we do with our typical staffing allocation model, but we've kept it separate because the needs for special educated students are very unique,
Right.
and it's not necessarily as easy to figure out exactly what that support has to look
Right.
like. So
Okay.
one student may need considerably more support than another, even though from the state's like weighted funding policies, it might look like they're the same. And so she looks into those kind of details of what are the services that all of the different students needs, and then she allocates the teachers and paraeducators that are paid for with special ed funds and elsewise. She allocates those through that process. And so some of that waits a little bit longer to figure out the details because the kids are going through and having new IEP meetings, and we're trying to get a feel for where all that is. So Francis
lot of
leads
moving
that
parts.
process for us.
Okay.
Was
Thank
that close? All right. She has taught me well.
Good for you. That was it. And to reiterate exactly what they said, I mean, I felt like I've had people ask me about the input, but it's been great. And I don't think that many people realize that when the governor says $2,000 for every teacher, the state's not giving us $2,000 for every teacher.
Yes.
They're giving us $2,000 for every 27 kids, or whatever. And we do stuff, and to commit to that and feel like we've been heard and we're doing a lot is great. I'm excited.
I do think that's a really great point, so I'm going to reiterate it, is that some people don't realize that there are teachers on our books that we get zero funding for from the state, right? And in addition, we pay significantly over the state salary schedule. That's also all local funding. And so there is a huge investment in this community. And while we technically could have singled out and said we're only giving these raises to the teachers who actually get them funded through the state, that's absurd, right? And frankly, most school districts figure out how to pass it on to the others, and the state government knows that they'll figure it out, and
Right.
they don't have to fund that. So, but that is a great point, because there are teachers that we don't get more funding for them, but we still fund the pay increase for them.
And to be able to say in February, we are.
Yes.
I'm sorry, it's March.
It is March.
It is March.
That's awesome.
Great.
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback on that as well. For me personally, the budget every year is one of those daunting things that we have to do, and every year it gets a little easier. And but this year's actually been really exciting to see how we're able to make a real difference in the lives of the people that work for us, especially that are in the lower paid bracket. So I'm very excited about that, and I've actually been talking about our budget out to people, like I know what I'm talking about, and it feels really good. But I also wanted to just point out, and Heather kind of mentioned this earlier, but just wanted to publicly thank you also for getting this new budget out as quickly as you have without the guidance of a director of finance at the moment. And so for taking that on and, you know, this is huge what you took on, and to still get it out in an early time frame, and not just kind of go back to what we're used to doing, just because that would have probably been easier and felt easier. So we definitely appreciate the extra work that you have put into this, as well as the staff that you've, Monique, and everybody that you've had to pull to help. So I just wanted to publicly thank you for that.
Yes.
And so if
And I
there-
could not have done it without Monique and Adina responding quickly to my many, many inquiries about what's this, or how do we do that, or what does this account code mean, or whatever. So many thanks to them too.
Thank you.
So we will want to do a vote on
Okay.
the budget.
Right.
Also, just one other comment. Thank you for the transparency. We do get asked a lot of questions from the community as to what is in our budget, and are we getting this, and are we getting that? And there was a lot of transparency in that process, and so we're grateful for that. It's very helpful, because I've been able to answer those questions directly.
Good.
So thank you.
Good. We also should give a shout out to Garrett Goebel, because while he's not sitting at the table anymore, a big part of how we do our budgeting now is because of things that he pushed on for year after year after year. And so this is
GG method,
the
everyone, in
GG
case you
method,
don't
we
know
call
what it's
it.
called, the GG method. Yes.
His legacy continues, so I appreciate that.
We finally did it once he left.
That's
so-
right,
know,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
All right, so we are going to take a vote. All in favor of approving the FY 2021 budget? All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We now have
Woo.
the approved budget in
Awesome.
March. Wow.
Thank
Break out
you.
the champagne.
That's right, that's right,
Awesome.
right.
All righty, and next topic of discussion, operations key performance indicators.
Yeah, so tonight we're going to talk about, this is related to our policy monitoring reports and how we're changing that up a little bit. They're going to talk about it, but I'll reinforce it. Just a quick reminder, this is the discussion about the indicators themselves. And then the work session that we have in a couple weeks is when we will talk about the actual data behind them. So the input here is, what do you think of these as potential indicators? And they're going to say the exact same thing I just said, so take it away, Noel.
The exact same thing.
Ditto.
Operations KPIs. Eston and I have spent a few weeks and months talking about ways to quantify the work we do. It's very extensive, but we feel like there's some very logical and good ways to look at the data that we produce really each year to inform you all and the public about how we're doing. The continuous monitoring report is really the driver for this, as Dr. Diddy said. We have identified, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to catch up to where he left me off.
Sorry.
That's okay. We think that the ones that we have picked really quantify the performance that we have and help us relate to other school districts. That's what I was trying to get to. We have pulled some things, many of them from Great City Schools group that we often are comparing ourselves to. If you remember a while back, I did a big study, Dr. Duty may have shared with some of you, about our custodial staffing, maintenance staffing, and what we were providing there. It was a great way for us to get a resource to say, hey, this is what other good school districts are doing out there that are similar to us, and how we can get those things there. So we've flipped that back around and started working on some ways for us to measure ourselves. In transportation, I kind of want to go through these. This looks like a pretty extensive list. Sometimes you'll see things that are really three breakdowns of one thing. The first piece is going to be bus fleet age. It's pretty important for us. We started our fleet 5.5 years ago, or 6.5 years ago, with sort of 15 brand new buses, and that was great. But when you have 15 brand new buses, they all get old at the same time. So Dr. Duty and I have worked on a plan to kind of cycle new buses in and cycle out, and we worked with the bus company actually to replace all 15 of our buses recently. So that was a big win for us. So bus fleet age will help us monitor where we are with our buses, keeping them up to date, keeping them ready to be on the road. And That's just a fairly easy one, but it gives you a lot of info on where we are. Cost per mile operated, cost per rider, and cost per bus are all related to our direct costs for transportation per mile that we drive. That's an interesting one because we don't drive a tremendous number of miles, and it really helps us inform what we're gonna do with fuel costs, and basically the fact that we're running lots of routes in a really small space, and it does cost a premium to do that. Cost per rider, that's literally how many riders you have and how much it costs, so that's a pretty common one. Our cost per bus, we have a total number of 25 buses at this point in various stages of use. Remember that some of them are special use buses, they have lifts and things on them, or they're smaller for certain populations of our students. We talk about our on-time performance. This is probably one of the ones that everybody will be watching with careful eyes and a magnifying glass. Did your bus run on time? Essentially, did you get your kids to school on time? Bus usage, which is, again, this is really not about how many buses we have and how much we're using them. This is more, this is more about how many runs do we have, meaning how many times do we take that bus out and go and pick up kids and come back, or pick up kids and take them to school and then come back. And that's divided then by the number of buses that we have. So that helps you understand kind of how, well, if we've got 25 buses and we're only doing 16 routes, why do we need all those buses? This really helps break that down and get a better understanding of really how we're using the buses. And then how many of them are actually being used per day and how many of them sit as sort of standby buses. Ride time, I think this is one that Dr. Dede and I have been looking at quite extensively for years. So I want to make sure that we put this one in here, and that's just the average time that your kid sits on the bus, quite frankly. And that's something that's very important to us, and we kind of go back and forth. So this data will help us inform what we decide to do with buses down the road. And then your daily ride time for your students with disabilities, because oftentimes that number is different and needs to be different for those students based on disability. We're only sitting on the bus for very long, but that can be a tremendous burden. Jumping to nutrition, the first two are really directly related to just participation. Breakfast participation rate, again, number of breakfast meals we serve. I think one thing that we are striving to do is increase that number, so by tracking this a little more closely and sharing that out, hopefully we can get more participation with breakfast. Lunch participation rate, which is phenomenal this year, by the way. Just how many kids are eating lunch with us, and this is not snacks or a la carte items. This is just reimbursable meals that we serve out to kids, and reimbursable meals, what you would just go up and get a tray and get. Then cost per meal, this will help us work on some of the things that we're trying to do with cost control in the budget, making sure that we can sustain the farm to school program and not exceed the revenues that we have. And that's the same thing with the food cost per meal. And then meals per labor hour is a really good way for us to track how we're using our employees. And this is a number that we're going to include in because we already include this into the Department of Education in a lot of our reports that we do. And this is a real good way to show how efficient our labor is with the meals we're serving. So those are some things with nutrition, sort of like running a restaurant. Facilities, this is stuff that we track as routine data anyway. We do a cost per square foot. Basically, how much does it cost us in supplies, contractor maintenance work, and total other costs in those categories to do routine maintenance. So that may be contracted, like I said, contracted work, that may be supplies, that may be the cost of machinery, things like that go directly into it. It does not include labor for our employees in it. Work order completion time and dates, again, this is what everybody wants to know. How long does it take you to fill a work order? This number, I want to get some good language around it because it can be skewed very heavily, very quickly if I have to do 3 major rooftop unit installations that take a month to do or so. That can skew those numbers. So we're trying to figure out how to pull some of that data and fine tune it a little bit for you. And then total utility costs, this is a pretty important number for us to begin looking at. One of the things that it has informed us over the last 2 years is that our solar project that we did at Renfro was absolutely worth replicating, so we're going to replicate that over at Tally Street as our next school. We were able to get a grant
Cool.
based on some of this data that we had already been collecting, and so we've got another grant for solar, which is great.
That's awesome.
So again, we're trying to align to things that we're already collecting, things that make a lot of sense, and things that we can share out, and people can kind of go, oh yeah, I wanted to know how long my kid was on the bus, or how many meals are we actually serving to our kids. So I will be quiet for a moment, let Eston talk about his second in just a moment. He can round us out.
And so here for information services, I plucked 4 that might be of interest to you. One is the median age of our computers by school year. Median age is a good proxy for a couple of things. You know, how well are we maintaining the life cycle, similar to what Noel was talking about with his bus fleet. Median age is also a good proxy for how secure are these devices, and how well are they keeping up with the use that our students are putting them up to. The second one is our ratio of student use computers by grade band. That gets proximate to our teachers and our students' access. You all have been very generous the last couple of years of approving my department's and our school's requests to refresh life cycle and bring equipment, so thank you. This is close to areas of instruction too. So when we talk about access to technology, it might prompt conversations about, okay, what are we doing with it in order to move students' learning forward. Noel just spoke about with facilities, break fix time for work orders, same thing with technology. One of my all-stars with a real quick repair time is sitting behind us, that's Chris. Jana, you remember Chris from being at Renfro, right? We have a service level agreement to our staff that if something's broken and we have the material and the expertise to repair it, we'll repair it within 48 hours. So let's spotlight that and make sure that we're meeting the expectations that we set. And then the last one is the kind of, I don't want to say wonkiest looking one, but the WAN, that's the wide area network. That is the series of fiber optic cables. You remember a couple of years ago, the blinking lasers. That's the network that we're building with the city, right? So this is a huge investment that we're putting in to transition from leasing fiber from a provider to partnering with the municipal government on a critical piece of infrastructure. Let's make sure that we're mindful about, is it doing what we expect it to do? And so we're happy to report out on the uptime of that key piece of our networking. And so this is, me and Noel coming to you saying, this is what we think is interesting. Does this get to what you are interested in? Are there gaps? Are there curiosities where you would like us to investigate, develop, bring additional data, or can we add some clarity, whether tonight or at the work session, to what it is you would like to hear from us?
Can we do it just by topic? Like start with the transportation and see if anyone has any thoughts and then move on to the next one?
Sure.
Okay.
Go for it. I'll drive.
So transportation, I had a thought, and these are just ideas.
Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely. That's
making any demands here, but it sounded like this was meant to be kind of a brainstorming session. And then you'll go think about it, and then we'll come back and talk about it again, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I thought maybe some data around incident reporting.
Okay.
For example, if there are accidents, or if there's a student on the wrong bus, or that kind of thing. Just to kind of see, like, are we doing our job well? Not just do we have buses and how old are they, but, and something else I thought of, like, in different departments here, it may actually be more of an HR thing, but I am interested in turnover in these various departments, like nutrition and transportation. I don't know if it fits the KPI or if it's maybe something that we do.
There are measures that we could use for that.
Okay, because I feel like that might have something to do with job satisfaction, with work environment, with, it's a data point to see if we're retaining people, and I think if we are, that could be an indicator that we are creating a good work environment. That's all I have for transportation.
Any others for transportation?
Just a quick question on the average time a kid is on the bus. Every now and then I'll run into a community member or parent who says that their child is on the bus way too long. And so how are we going to, are we matching that against something, what the average time should be? How will we know if our kids are on the bus too long am I getting my question across?
No, so what we do is we work off a big table, and I work off a big table of this is what these routes should take in average times to get completed. We work towards building routes that don't exceed 45 to 50 minutes total, and that's built off of how many buses we have, how many routes we need to drive, how many riders we have. And all that stuff goes into, okay, this is a reasonable thing. There are also turnaround times at schools, things like that. There's sort of a 40-minute window that we have to get things reset to go back out on the regular routes. So we work through all of that, and we come up with a sort of average ride time for that. So as we pick up the daily ride time, we're able to look at it and say, yes, we're meeting that goal, or no, we're not meeting that goal.
Perfect.
I think that answers what you're looking at. So we could, without giving you the big, giant, crazy spreadsheet, we could probably work off of route, do it sort of as a route average time, something like that. So we'll work through it, and it may not happen on this first pass that we bring to you in a few weeks, but we can certainly refine that out as we discuss through it. So when we look at the data, I'll bring some information about that.
Perfect, thank you.
Kind of there, but just how many of our students are taking advantage of the buses? And how does that go up and down if I'm missing it there at one of them?
That is your
Like total population
Yeah.
versus total using the bus on a day-to-day?
we could bring something, we could bring sort of a ratio of riders to enrollment or something like that.
We actually, we may, because what would be most interesting is eligible riders.
Yeah.
A ratio of eligible riders, because not all kids are eligible because of they live too close. Which we may be able to use the new Guide to K-12 tool to calculate. We'll have to look at that and see.
And it might come out as something in a sort of average percentage, because we have a lot of eligible, ridership is not consistent.
Obviously, yeah.
Right.
My kid doesn't ride Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It'll maybe be ride this route Monday, another route Tuesday, not ride on Wednesday or Thursday, and then something else on Friday is sort of
Or my kid only rides when it rains.
But if we did, that's an interesting comment that James had, because if we did look at that over the entire year,
Yeah.
and we saw, for example, that one route was very heavily used and one route was not, it could influence changes in routes.
And so we do look at
Yeah.
ridership
Okay.
totals like that.
Okay.
And what we do is collect the number of kids that are on those buses each day.
Okay.
And so that we could bring in to the number of kids that are taking the bus. It wouldn't be a comparison to eligible riders, but we can show that for sure, and that
Oh, okay.
we keep up with. Because what we'll do is if there's a route that's super empty,
Yeah.
we'll shorten it or combine it or do something else to relieve overcrowding on another route or just a large route. So we make those adjustments a lot, so we could bring that in as well.
Okay.
So I'll give a couple examples of those.
Yeah, I like the thought of knowing what percentage of eligible riders, because if there are things we could do to increase ridership, it would benefit our whole city.
Correct.
Yeah.
And traffic and the environment, but just everyone's gonna be.
Probably attack both of those
But
things,
that would be
with
interesting.
some data.
Yeah, okay.
For me, it's too early. That's why we don't ride the bus in the morning.
Okay, how about nutrition?
I had a question about nutrition. I don't know if this is possible, or if this fits here, but I was wondering about student and teacher satisfaction with the meals. Is there?
So you want some
Like some survey data?
Yeah, because I know that after we had some federal changes with nutrition, since I've been here, the meals kind of changed a little bit, and I'll notice that sometimes, like say when my sons were still here, they might just eat the French fries, or every Friday there's pizza or maybe it's every day there's pizza.
It depends on the location.
Right, so I think at Renfro, I think every day there's pizza.
That's an à la carte item.
It is, but yeah, so I was just wondering if there was a way
We can look at
to-
that.
We'll look and see what we can.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know that it will be on.
It may be a good task for our new food service director, once we name them as a project for that first year, to figure out how to gather that data
Or
too.
maybe we could empower the student government to help collect data, and even input. You know, maybe getting some real connection with the students and getting some real feedback from the students could be interesting.
We do that quite a bit. We do
Okay.
a lot of taste tests. We do a lot of interaction with the culinary program. We do
Okay.
a lot of that work already, so we can bolster that and figure out ways to bring some data back. That'd be great.
Awesome.
Do they keep up with the lunch participation per meal? I mean, I don't envy it. I just remember going to school and buying lunch, whatever it was. My children, I feel like this is true across the board. Like, they know what's coming up. Oh, I'm buying it next Thursday, next Tuesday,
Right.
next Wednesday, next Thursday. And I assume we have that data. We're like, well, it's chicken nugget day, so I got to get to work extra early, and it's breakfast for lunch day, and
There are days where we talk about the extra prep that we do.
got it.
Well, and the food service staff definitely cares about that, because they don't want to order food that they then can't use because it's low participation, so. you know.
I had two things that are maybe tangential, so just food for thought. Sorry. One is just like looking at this, we're looking at a lot of quantitative data about nutrition, but how can we evaluate quality and just ensure that we are maintaining high quality, serving lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, continuously monitoring, not serving empty calorie foods, and then also continuing to just emphasize our strategic partners like the farm to school programs. So maybe
I think a lot of that can come from not so much our KPIs as
Mhm.
much as it is the regulations and standards that we meet in our program and the way that we have. I'll give you an example. We serve every day 2 fresh vegetables. That is not a requirement of USDA. We can go with one. There are ways to do different combinations, but that is just something we as a department have decided we do. So that happens every day.
right, which I think is important to report out that we're doing that. I mean,
So there
I
may be
agree.
I think there may be some narrative
Yeah.
that needs to go along
Okay.
with this that would help with that. Because the other piece of that is we spend all of our USDA commodity monies on local produce for the
Okay.
entire year. So we get about $100,000 in monies from the USDA for commodities.
Yeah.
And many school districts buy things that are pre-prepared meat, things that are empty calorie food, just whatever. There's all kinds of commodities out there. So what we've done is leverage that money to pay for local produce, and there is a participation program that we take advantage of and do that, and usually lasts us about 2/3 of the year because of how many fruits and vegetables we serve. We do things like, and we can get deeper into this at another time, but we do things like if you participate in lunch, you have access to the salad bar, period. So there's a lot of things that we're doing to give children access to foods. We do choice versus we're just giving you food. So kids have a lot of choices that they can make about foods, so that we're hoping to broaden their horizons with what we're doing. So I think let me put my head around that
Okay.
and bring back some ideas. I think where you're going with that is phenomenal, and we try to do a lot through our social media, but I think we could do some more formal reports back and say, hey, these are some of the things we do. Basically what I'm telling you now in
Right.
some narrative form.
Okay. The other thing is around health and safety, maybe giving some transparency into what kind of inspections are we having, what kind of scores are we getting, and
Easy to do.
then also, here's the tangential part, partnering with our nursing staff to encourage hand washing and, good cleanliness and good healthy behaviors prior to eating, that maybe, because I feel like I don't know really, it does kind of fit in maybe in the health education and the nursing part, but it's a part of going to lunch. And So just making sure that we have procedures in place somehow around and ensuring and enabling and facilitating and encouraging students to wash their hands. And whether that's actual soap and water or whether that's hand sanitizer, but somehow making sure we're actually doing it and enforcing that and that that's being followed. Because I feel like it's easy to be too busy or to skip that part. And especially in today's environment, I think it's really important that we're emphasizing that.
I'll get back to him.
Yeah.
I think I got to kind of think about
Yeah.
how to do that. Our nutrition staff doesn't have the right contact with students to
Right.
do that prior to. But let me
And
let me
it,
just
so
get back to
it may not be your department, it may be more the health education portion or, but
Realistically,
like how is it?
Teachers for sure.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say
So
Yeah.
let me get back to you on it.
Yeah, sure.
I'll
Thank
certainly
you.
work on that.
Okay.
Don't disagree at all.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on nutrition?
Thank
Okay, how about facilities?
Just one thought, I didn't see anything about tracking the number of open work order tickets.
Yeah.
And I
so-
get what you're saying about that can also be influenced by whether they're really big, huge projects.
Yeah,
Then
it
there
can
might
be,
but
so we try to keep the projects out of our work orders to help with
Oh,
that. So
okay.
there can be something that does stay open for a long time that
Yeah.
you would think, oh, well, that should be very easy to do, but it may
Mhm.
be literally a part that we have to have manufactured for us
Yeah.
or something we have. So let me look at that and
Okay.
see if that's a KPI that we can ease. The other part of it is I need to make sure that it's something that we can pull the data for fairly easy.
Mhm.
And that should be, I don't see why it would not
Yeah.
be, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah, okay.
All right, other facilities? All right, information services.
Well, just, here's a thought. I wondered if it would be helpful to have anything around cost per student and cost per teacher, like to see how efficiently we're spending the money, like what is it? Because I feel like you've done a lot of work around evaluating the cost of, for example, Chromebooks versus the iPads. And that was one example where you found a huge cost savings and made it more efficient. And I think, therefore maybe we're able to refresh a whole new fleet of Chromebooks at Renfro for much lower cost, probably sooner than we maybe would have been able to otherwise, for example. So that was just one thought I had around just how efficiently are we using our money on a per student and a per teacher basis.
Let me give you some thought. I mean, there's
Yeah.
some boilerplate formulas out there, particularly
Mhm.
within technology, looking at return on investment, or cost
Yeah.
of ownership out there.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get a little tricky to apply, like
Yeah.
district-wide versus school-level stuff, but
Mhm.
gives them time to think about it.
Yep, and that's what all it is, just an idea. So.
Is it just computers? Are there other? Yeah.
Anything that carries a signal and or plugs directly into a computer, we probably manage at some point or have some say in. We have 15,000 items in our inventory, so.
Wow.
There's a lot. It's computers, copiers, projectors,
Okay.
network infrastructure, wireless,
Cameras.
We own cameras. Some of the things we are the primary stewards of, like we are responsible for them, like the Chromebook in front of you. And other things we are more consultants on.
Yeah.
Like the ERP that drives the finance system.
Hmm.
Finance drives that, we help them fix it when it breaks. And it's some physical stuff, it's also digital resources like software.
Thanks.
Okay.
Any others?
Thank you for putting,
Thank you.
thank you for proposing all of these
So I think what we'll do
metrics.
is we've got a work session coming up,
Mhm.
in a few weeks. You've given us some questions and things to think
Mhm.
about. If we have some follow-up questions, we can kind of come back to you and say, here's what we think we heard. If you brought up an idea that kind of seems like a showstopper, we can't quite deliver on what you're asking for, we'll bring it to you then.
Mhm.
And then we'll have a more formal report for you at the next board meeting.
Thank you.
Does that sound
Perfect.
good?
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Cool, absolutely.
All right.
Next up, Senior Homestead Exemption Committee.
All right, so we are getting much closer to having this committee formed. I put in there the list of the groups from the resolution. So resolution number 20-01 was approved at the work session. You may recall we had to amend the agenda, and we voted on that there. I've attached it here so everybody could see it. Everyone has been doing work reaching out to these various groups to get the representatives. So I think we have some updates on those, and I think I may have also put some people in the wrong categories. So if you see any corrections like that, let's talk about those. And then once we get everybody on this team, everyone figured out, we'll be reaching out to all these folks. We've been collecting all their contact information so we can get that first meeting scheduled. I will also share that I have a web page we're putting together where we're putting all of our resources about senior homestead exemptions. We will put all of our work as this committee does its work. We'll put it on that web page, and so that will go live as soon as we get the whole committee identified and get that first meeting scheduled. So, do you see any? Let's start with any errors that where I put people in the wrong spot or anything like that.
I had mentioned that for D, Elke Davidson was the chair of the Affordable Housing Committee, but Paula Collins had volunteered for that spot.
Okay.
She had led the Senior Homestead Exemption Subcommittee, and then Paula Collins you had written down in H, and that had actually been Hans Utz, right?
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
And then, Jana, did you have an update on Decatur Business Association?
Yes, I've been in communication with Susan Sparks, who leads the Decatur Business Association, and so she will have a name confirmed for me, said probably by tomorrow.
Awesome.
Okay.
Any other errors or information on the committee membership? So I think that means, if I'm looking at this correctly, we've got, so Paula's moving, we had left Hans off unintentionally, he'll go where Paula's name was, and then we'll know DBA tomorrow, so I think that's everybody, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so once I get that name from DBA, I will work on reaching out to folks and getting that first meeting set up. Just to remind people, we will be running this under all the open meeting rules because it is a board committee. So we will be posting agendas, we will be posting minutes, et cetera. So details of the charge for the committee are in that resolution for anyone who's interested, and then we'll make sure to keep sharing all this information. I think I shared with you all, I have also been flagging any emails that I get from residents who are interested in this topic. So we have kind of a list that we can turn to make sure they know when meetings are getting scheduled and whatnot. Kind of a distribution list, basically, in addition to whatever other communication mechanisms we have. So,
well, I wanted to say the sixth whereas, because I'd gotten the question about it, but whereas the board is committed to renewing the exemption, that is the point of the committee. We are charging the group with coming up with a data-driven means of suggesting a way for us to extend tax exemption for the seniors. I feel like we've said that publicly multiple times, but then I've had people come
can't
up to
be
me.
said enough.
And one senior, I said, I'm agreeing with you. So I just wanted to say that again.
All right. Any other comments or questions?
Thank you.
I have a request just because I'm feeling rather tired. Can we do the district improvement plan, the third part at the work session instead? I would really appreciate that if that would be okay.
Okay, not a
Right.
problem. Moving it to
Awesome.
work session.
I'm fine with that.
And then Maggie can do it.
I see what you did there.
Smart.
Right. Okay, so now it moves us
As
to-
long as Lewis takes notes on the Google
right.
Doc.
That's right. For future dates, is it okay if we go on to future dates?
Yes.
Absolutely, yes.
For future dates, I noticed the work session isn't listed there. But there is a work session on the calendar for, let me double check the date.
24th.
March 24th, thank you. So if you could plan on that, it is on the board calendar, and we'll get that updated to reflect it as well. But March 24th at 7, we can do this third part of the district improvement plan and the operations KPIs, and we'll see if there's any other topics we need to work into that one.
7.
Yes, 7 o'clock downstairs. And then I thought maybe we could talk quickly about NSBA conference, because that is rapidly approaching. We do have all these different conferences that are getting canceled. We are making plans for whether or not we go. So I just wanted to check in before we make all those investments on different things. Do those who were going to go still want to go? Do you want to say, all right, maybe we'll catch it next year? I think really we're open to whatever you want to do. We can accommodate. And just to clarify, we're handling it the same way with any staff members. For instance, we have some staff signed up for conferences. At this point, if the conference is still going and there's no other reason to stop it, if the staff member wants to go, they go. But if a staff member feels uncomfortable going, even if the health department says it's okay, we are allowing them to not go, and we will do our best to recoup as much of the money as we can. But we didn't want to be in a situation where we're forcing staff members to go on a trip that they don't feel comfortable going on, given the current status of things. So I just want to share that so you're aware. We're handling this and this conversation exactly how we're handling it with staff too.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
any thoughts on
I am
that?
feeling a little antsy about being on a plane.
Yeah. Okay.
That's, yeah.
I was planning on still attending. Yeah, I was still gonna.
Okay.
Chicago.
Yeah. It helps that it's in Chicago.
It helps that it's in Chicago, but I was really excited about attending after having a
Yeah, me
taste of
too.
the.
Yeah.
I know, but
too.
it's scary.
And if you want to think, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you could maybe let us know for sure tomorrow, and we can get started one way or the other on either making reservations or I don't think